let's start with a super quick revision of the next chapter, that is payment of tax. Simple chapter, small chapter, ranging from section number 49 to 53 actually. But in this particular chapter, we are going to like TDS, TCS provisions, I have kept it separate. So we are going to deal with section 49, 49A, 49B and section number 50. And whatever section numbers, and yes, definitely relevant rules we are also going to do along. And whatever section numbers I just mentioned above, 49, 49A, 49B and section number 50, this pertains to the CGST law. Okay, now first, what is the purpose of studying this particular chapter of payment of tax? Under GST, we know that whatever is our output tax payable, that liability we have to discharge. Okay, and this liability, that is your CGST, SGST, IGST, UTGST, etc. This liability you have to discharge by either utilizing your input tax credit, that is your ITC, or if there is any balance, if there is any still outstanding amount balance payable, so then you will have to pay the amount out of the electronic cash ledger, that is you will have to pay that amount in cash to the government. Okay, for the purpose of maintaining the hisab kitab of the payment of taxes, 3 registers are required or 3 ledgers are required. First one is your electronic cash ledger, second one is your electronic credit ledger, and the third one is your electronic liability register. Okay, these are the registers that we are required to maintain for the purpose of payment of taxes. Okay, now let's start discussing about all the 3 ledgers. First one, electronic cash ledger. Okay, this is a very sorted ledger. And this will be maintained in a prescribed format on the GST portal. Whatever amount of tax we paid to the government directly by generating a Chalan on the GST portal, such payment is credited to the account called as electronic cash ledger. Okay, example, I pay CGST 10,000, I pay SGST 10,000, I pay IGST 20,000. 40,000 rupees I have paid by way of online payment. Okay, by generating a Chalan on the GST portal, this 40,000 will get credited to my electronic cash ledger. Yes, okay, so this is not your ITC. Okay, this is not your ITC. This is just like your e-wallet in which you are going to just deposit the amount. Okay, why are we putting some amount in the electronic cash ledger? So that that cash ledger amount can be used for discharging our liabilities. Okay, ma'am, how to refill this wallet, how to refill this e-wallet, or how to deposit the money in this electronic cash ledger? So this can be done by online mode, that is IMPS, IMPS, net banking, debit card, credit card, UPI, etc. These methods can be used. Okay, or alternatively NEFT, RTGS, or over the counter payment up to rupees 10,000 per Chalan per tax period. This much amount of payment by way of over the counter method can be done. Means they are not really promoting us to go and do the payment by over the counter, because they are telling please start utilizing the online method of making the payment. Okay. Then, but there are 3 cases, okay, there are 3 exceptions I should say, in which you can do the payment over the counter of more than rupees 10,000 also. Okay, first one, when the payment is done by government departments, okay, or when you have been told by the commissioner to do the payment over the counter of any amount, means you have got the permission from the commissioner or any proper officer. Okay, or when the proper officer has asked you to or the proper officer has recovered some taxes from you in case of tax evasion. It has maybe by directly it has recovered the amount of GST from you, or maybe it has sold your movable or immovable properties because you were evading the GST. So that amount can be deposited into the electronic cash ledger by over the counter method also. Or whenever anything was found during investigation etc. by the proper officer, even that amount can be, even if it is more than 10,000, it can be deposited over the counter, right? Now, whenever we are doing this payment in electronic cash ledger, first we have to generate the Chalan. Okay, we have to generate the Chalan on the GST portal. After generate, we'll put all the details, CGST this amount, SGST this amount, etc. Okay, once we generate the Chalan, there will be a number called as CPIN, Common Portal Identification Number, that will be given to you, and this CPIN will be valid for a period of 15 days. That is, within a period of 15 days, you will have to, the Chalan that you have generated, of that you are required to do the payment maximum within a time period of 15 days. Once you do the payment, okay, once you do the payment of that particular Chalan, and the payment is successfully done, after that there will be a number called as Chalan Identification Number that will be generated, which is going to be a 18-digit number. that just proves as the Chalan number, or that is just as an acknowledgement number that yes, we have received your payment. Are you clear with this? Yes. Then after that, bank also sometimes issues a number called as BRN. BRN stands for bank reference number. This is also a transaction number stating that okay, we have received your payment. Are you clear with this? Okay. Then after that, yes, in GST now manual payments or manual chalans, manual payments nahi, manual chalans is totally not allowed. If you want to do the payment, chalan needs to be generated online compulsorily. Okay, this chalan has to be generated in form GST PMT 06 on the common portal, which will be valid for a period of 15 days. Okay, within a period of 15 days, using this using the CPIN, you are required to do the payment. Once the payment is successful, your SIN will be generated. Sometimes it so happens that because of some online issues, etc., the payment is debited from your account, but SIN is not generated. Then in that case, you can make a representation on the GST portal in form GST PMT 07, where you can state that my payment got deducted, but the amount was not credited to my cash ledger, etc., and that problem will be solved. Okay, similarly, when your TDS is deducted under GST or when your TCS is collected under GST, even that will be shown in your electronic cash ledger. Okay, once you have availed this TDS or TCS, then the amount will get reflected in your electronic cash ledger. Okay, now in this electronic cash ledger, in what format will this be maintained? This will be maintained in a particular format, that is, first of all the major heads will be returned. CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST. These are the major, and cess, compensation cess. These are the major heads. Okay, as you can see here from the board, these are the major heads under which you can do the payment. Within these major heads, you are going to have 5 minor heads in each of the major heads. Okay, example, first is your IGST, for example. IGST is your major head. Within this major head, you can do the payment under any of the 5 minor heads, that is your tax, interest, penalty, late fees, others. Similarly, same 5 minor heads are going to be there under others also, that is in CGST, SGST, UTGST, cess, etc. Okay, so in whichever head your payment is due, you can fill it in the chalan, and then the chalan can be generated and the payment can be done. Okay, now listen, sometimes it can so happen that erroneously, okay, instead of doing CGST payment, you put the amount in SGST column, or instead of putting it in the tax column, you put it in the interest column. Then what? Can we say our money gets blocked? Okay, then in that case, now they have told you that this amount that you have deposited by way of electronic cash ledger, this is freely transferable. Means, let's say by mistakenly, I have deposited some amount under CGST tax. Okay, whereas it should have been in IGST tax. Then use a form called as GST PMT 09. Okay, and by using this form, transfer the amount from one head to another head. Okay, there is no restriction. From any major head to any major head, from any minor head to any minor head, the amount can be transferred. There is no restriction. Plus, one more thing that they have told you is, now you can even transfer the the amount kept in your electronic cash ledger even to your distinct person, but provided you should not be having any outstanding liability pending. Okay, पहले अपना liability खत्म करो, उसके बाद में if you have anything kept in your electronic cash ledger, then you may transfer it to the distinct persons. That is permitted. Are you clear with this? Okay. Then after that, going on to the next part, that is electronic credit ledger. In electronic credit ledger, again, this is the ledger which will be maintained on the GST portal in a particular format. Okay. And how does the amount come under electronic credit ledger? The input tax credit which you have availed, okay, the input tax credit on input goods, input services, etc., that you have availed, that gets credited to our electronic credit ledger. Okay, this can be called as electronic credit ledger also, or it can be called as electronic input tax credit ledger also. Okay, and yes, just remember one thing, this electronic credit ledger, okay, 2 restrictions are there, and super duper important restriction. Electronic credit ledger cannot be used for payment of taxes under reverse charge mechanism. Remember, under some circumstances, and even at the time of purchases, the recipient is required to pay the tax directly to the government. Under reverse charge mechanism, that cannot be paid out of credit ledger, that has to be paid out of cash ledger only. Okay, another point. Whatever amount is kept in your electronic credit ledger, that can be used only for payment of taxes. only for payment of taxes and not for payment of other dues. That is, it cannot be used for payment of interest, penalty, late fees, other dues, etc. No. If you want to pay interest, penalty, etc., that has to be paid from the electronic cash ledger. Are you clear till here? Then the next one, that is how to utilize the electronic credit ledger, how to utilize the ITC. This we have already studied in the ITC chapter. Okay, first utilize the IGST credit. IGST credit will be first utilized for IGST liability, then in any particular manner for CGST and SGST. Do you recollect this? Yes, then your CGST credit will be utilized for CGST liability or IGST liability, but not for SGST. Similarly, SGST credit can be utilized for SGST liability and IGST liability, but not for CGST. There was a cross between CGST and SGST. Then in that very chapter of input tax credit, we had studied about rule number 86A and 86B. In rule number 86A, we had studied that if you have availed, okay, if you have fraudulently availed some amount of ITC, okay, which you are not eligible for, then the commissioner or any other officer who has been authorized by the commissioner, that person can tell you that so much amount is blocked and you cannot utilize this amount of ITC. Okay, then you will not be allowed to utilize that amount of input tax credit. And similarly, in rule number 86B, we had seen that if you are such a person whose value of taxable supply, that is other than exempt supply and zero rated supply, in a month exceeds rupees 50 lakhs, then at least 1% of your output tax liability you have to compulsorily pay by electronic cash ledger. 99% can be paid by utilizing the credit ledger, but at least 1% should be paid by way of cash ledger. Okay, we had exceptions that we had already studied in our input tax liability chapter. Are you clear with this? Yes. Okay, then the last type of register, that is electronic liability register. Okay, in electronic liability register, this was the last type. In this electronic liability register, this will be maintained by you. On the debit side of the electronic liability register, you will record all the liability that is payable. Okay, taxes and other dues which is payable for any past period. Okay, taxes or other dues which is payable for the current period, or any other amount which has been determined by the GST authorities, example by way of demand notice under section 73, 74, all these will be debited. Okay, this is not yet paid. This amount which I just told you, these amounts are payable. Okay, these are payable, so these will be debited to the electronic liability register. Okay, then how will you pay it? Can we say if we have debited the electronic liability register with the payable amount, when you actually pay it, you will be crediting it. Okay, and this liability can be discharged out of your electronic credit ledger and out of your electronic cash ledger. Are you clear with this? Yes. Then there is a assumption that once we have paid tax under GST, the benefit of that has been passed on to the other person. Okay, the benefit of that has been passed on to the recipient of such goods or services. That is, if we pay the tax, the recipient of such goods or services receives the input tax credit of the same. Are you clear with this? Okay, now next thing that they are asking is, because of this payment system that we have set under GST, what is the benefit available to the taxpayer and what is the benefit available to the GST department? Can you tell me the benefit of this online payment to the taxpayer? No going to the bank, no standing in the queue, payment can be done 24/7, immediate receipts are generated, right? Even the money reaches to the government immediately. Yes, more transparency is there. These are the benefits available to the taxpayer. What is the benefit available to the government? Biggest benefit available to the tax department is they receive the revenue very fast. Okay, if we do the payment now, immediately the amount gets credited to the government treasury, right? Then all the data is maintained with the government in electronic format. All the chalans which were earlier in physical format, now all the chalans are going to be maintained in the digital format. And yes, definitely things have become faster, things have become more transparent because of this particular method, right? Then going on to the last section, that is section number 50. Section number 50, 50. Okay, section number 50 talks about interest on delayed payment of tax. Now they say that whenever tax was payable to the government, and if we have done the payment late, okay, if we have done the payment late, then in that case on the tax payable we are required to pay the interest to the government at a rate of 18%. Okay, 18% is the rate of tax. Now listen. To simplify it for you, tax is payable. Can you see first three pointers coming up here? Yes, not tax, interest. Interest is payable in three circumstances. Okay, everyone here, full attention. Okay, interest is payable in three circumstances. First one, when there was any tax payable to the government. Okay, let's say there is a particular liability of 10 lakh rupees. Okay, total 10 lakh rupees was payable to the government for a particular month. Out of that, I have credit of, in my electronic credit ledger, I have credit of 8 lakh rupees. Okay, means I am falling short of 2 lakh rupees. 2 lakh rupees is payable by electronic cash ledger. Okay, but now I could not pay it before the due date of that particular month. Okay, and because of that, I could not even file the GST returns, because nowadays, if you want to file GST returns, prepayment is mandatory. First pay the tax, then only file the returns. So because I could not pay the tax by way of electronic cash ledger, I could not file the returns, GST return, GST 3B on time. Because of that, my return got delayed. Okay, now because my return got delayed, so because I am going to file the return late, because I am going to pay the tax late. Now when I am actually going to pay the tax, at that time interest will be applicable at the rate of 18%. Okay, on what amount? On what amount interest will be applicable? My total liability was 10 lakh, out of which I am going to utilize the credit of 8 lakhs. Amount payable by cash ledger was only 2 lakh. So in this case, the interest will be applicable only on that 2 lakh, because the amount which is there in under the credit ledger, that is anyway with the government. Okay, so government cannot ask interest on that particular amount. Therefore, interest will be applicable only on the net liability. Okay, that is of 2 lakhs. Now, interest will be applicable from when to when? Whatever was the original due date, for filing the return, from the very next day, the interest meter is going to start till the date of actual payment. Okay, that is the time period for which interest will be applicable on the net liability, that is net liability which is payable by electronic cash ledger. Right? Then second case when the interest is payable. Okay, now let's say for the month of January, you filed the returns, you paid the taxes, you filed the returns, everything was done on time. If everything was done on time, there will be no interest applicable, right? But now later, let's say in the month of June, you realize that there was some particular invoice which was missed of that month. Of the month of January, it was missed, that you are realizing. Jan month ka invoice miss hua, that you are realizing in the month of June. Okay, on that, let's say the tax liability is equal to 10 lakh rupees. Okay, the missed liability, short tax paid, is equal to 10 lakh rupees. Now you say that out of this 10 lakh, I will utilize 8 lakh of credit balance and 2 lakh I will pay by cash ledger. Government says now nothing doing. Now there is a short payment of tax. So interest will be payable on that entire 10 lakh rupees that you are going to pay by cash plus credit ledger. Did you understand the difference? In the earlier case, because there was the belated return concept. Okay, then in that case, government told you to pay the interest on net tax liability. But now in this case, government will tell you to pay interest on the entire 10 lakhs at the rate of 18%, right from the due date of the original return till the date of now making the payment to the government. Okay, so basic difference: in the earlier one, belated return was filed, net tax liability, interest will be calculated upon. Okay, in this case, original return was filed on time. Later we realize that there is some short tax paid. So interest will be calculated on the gross liability, that is total liability which we are going to discharge by credit ledger as well as cash ledger. Rate of interest, time of interest is going to remain the same. And the last case, okay, last case is when, let's say, if we have availed any credit, okay, if we have availed any ITC, okay, any input tax credit is wrongly availed. Okay, if we have wrongly availed the ITC and we have utilized it. Okay, first case, if we have availed any ITC, first of all, ITC can be availed, but there are some ITCs which is not allowed, which we cannot avail. Okay, which is blocked, etc. But still, if I have availed it, okay, if you, after availing it, if you reverse it, then government has no problem because the money is still with the government. Okay, but if you have availed some ITC and if you wrongly utilize it, then government says, then this is the problem. Okay, example, let's say for the month of January again. Okay, let's say for the month of January, your ITC, which was correctly availed was, for example, 20 lakh rupees. Okay, and ITC wrongly availed is equal to 10 lakh rupees. Okay, correctly availed 20 lakhs, wrongly availed is equal to 10 lakhs. Total ITC available with you is equal to 30 lakhs. Okay, till the time you are just availing ITC, government has no problem. Okay, but if you wrongly utilize that ITC for discharging your tax liability, then the government has any problem. Okay, now listen. Correctly availed ITC 20 lakhs, wrongly availed ITC 10 lakhs, total ITC 30 lakhs. Now, if you have availed ITC, okay, if you have availed the ITC and now if the balance in your input tax credit ledger, if this goes below 10 lakhs, how much was my wrongly availed ITC? It was 10 lakhs. So now government is telling that till the time you don't use this 10 lakh, we don't have any problem. But as soon as you use this 10 lakh, we are going to charge interest from you. Okay. So now how will we come to know that whether we have availed this ITC or not? Now total balance in your ITC account was 30 lakhs. Okay. The day your balance falls below 10 lakhs. Okay. Till the time you have out of that 30, till the time you use 20 lakhs, correct ITC, government has no problem. But as soon as you start using from the last 10 lakhs, government has problem. Okay, now let's say you have utilized out of that 10 lakhs. Okay, first 20 lakhs is over. Till there government has no problem. Now the balance in your ITC account is equal to 10 lakhs. From that, now let's say you have in the month of March, for example, if you have utilized 2 lakhs, means can I say your new balance in the ITC is equal to 8 lakh rupees, which should not have fallen below 10 lakhs. That is your wrongly availed ITC. So they say that interest will be applicable on this 2 lakh. Jab tak, see, total amount was 20 plus 10. Government has no problem with utilization of that 20. Government will have problem once you start utilizing that wrongly availed ITC. So that 10 lakh should be there as it is. If you have 10 lakh in your ITC, government will not charge interest from you. Okay, but the day when you start utilizing that 10 lakh from whatever amount of ITC you utilize out of that 10 lakh, on that interest will become applicable. Okay, let's say you have wrongly utilized ITC 10 lakh. From that you utilize 2 lakh. Interest will be applicable on that 2 lakh. Okay, let's say you utilize that 2 lakh wrong balance in the month of March. So whatever was the due date for filing the return for the month of March or the actual return filing of March, whichever is earlier, from that day your interest meter is going to start till the time you repay this amount back to the government. Are you understanding this? Okay, let's say now wrong balance availed was 10 lakhs. From that you utilize 2 lakhs. Interest became applicable. Okay, after that, even if your ITC balance goes above 10 lakhs, doesn't matter. Interest will still be applicable. Okay, now let's say you have utilized further 1 lakh. Okay, your balance was reduced to 8 lakhs. Now you have utilized further 1 lakh. Again interest. Now let's say in the month of April, you have utilized further 1 lakh. So whatever is the due date for filing the return for the month of April, or actual due date or actual date of filing the return for April, whichever is earlier, from there the interest meter is going to start till the time you repay this wrongly utilized credit back to the government. Are you understanding this? Yes. These are the pointers. This was the third case basically. This was the third case where your interest becomes applicable. Why government is asking you interest? Because there was some amount of ITC which you should not have availed and utilized. But still if you have done, then first thing is you have to pay it back to the government. And second thing is for the period for which you have wrongly utilized it, for that period you have to pay the interest to the government. Okay, interest rate in all the cases remain the same, that is at the rate of 18%. I hope I am very clear with this. Yes, and very recent government, for May 24 and November 24 examination onwards, there are some clarifications. There are 2 clarifications which have been put up here. Now see here, what did I tell you just now for the third case of interest? What did I tell you? That whatever is the balance available in your electronic credit ledger or whatever is the balance available in your ITC account, that should not fall below that 10 lakh of wrongly availed ITC. Okay, now when you are calculating the balance of your electronic credit ledger, will you only take IGST, CGST, SGST balance, or will you take the total balance of your electronic credit ledger? Means will you take it of any one of the taxes or will you take it of the entire one? you will take the entire, whenever you are comparing, whenever you are calculating your total electronic credit ledger balance, you have to take it off all the taxes. Anyway, interest penalty will not come in the electronic credit ledger, but tax amount will come under electronic credit ledger, right? So there you have to take a total of IGST, CGST, SGST, UTGST. Are you clear with this? Yes. Okay, but now second question which came into mind was, acha, what about the compensation cess? Will that be included while calculating the total of electronic credit ledger? So answer is no, that the compensation cess, which if you have any credit of compensation cess available, that will not be included in your electronic credit ledger for the purpose of interest calculation, because if there is any credit of compensation cess, that can be used only for payment of compensation cess. So it is not a free amount of tax that is available with you. Therefore, while calculating the interest for the third point, that is for misutilization of credit or utilization of wrongly availed credit, for that when you were calculating the total balance of your credit ledger, you are not required to take the cess amount. Are you clear with this? Okay, I'll repeat that point again. Just try to understand. If my correctly availed ITC was 20 lakhs, my wrongly availed ITC was 10 lakhs. Okay, total amount at that time of ITC available with me is equal to 30 lakhs. Okay, now till your government has no problem. When will the government have problem? When you start utilizing the wrong credit. Means, can you utilize up to 20 lakh, that is the correct credit? Yes. But once you start utilizing from that wrong of 10, at that time the problem starts. Okay. Now let's say you exhausted the first 20 lakhs totally. You utilize that correct credit. Can you utilize that correct credit? Yes. But what about that 10 lakhs? Can you utilize that wrongfully availed credit? No, wrongfully availed credit cannot be utilized. But the moment you start utilizing that, at that time the interest was becoming applicable on that case. Yes. So now, numerical example, one more which I'll give you. Let's say wrongly availed credit is equal to 10 lakh. Okay, balance, total balance available after few months in your ITC is 15 lakhs. Will government have any problem? No. Why? Because this wrongly availed credit of 10 lakhs is included in this 15 lakhs. Means you have not yet utilized it. Okay, so while calculating this 15 lakh of ITC balance, at that time you have to take CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST, but you cannot take the compensation cess then. Are you clear with this? Yes. And the last section, that is section number 53 of the CGST, which we have already studied in the earlier chapters, which said that whenever we are utilizing other credit, example, if we are utilizing CGST credit for payment of IGST liability or vice versa, then can we say amounts will be transferred internally by the government from one head to another head? Example, if I am utilizing CGST credit for payment of IGST liability, amount will be reduced from the CGST account and it will be added to the IGST, and so on and so forth. Are you clear with this? Yes, this was all about your payment of